on today's episode of the Real Life Podcast.
I was there with the lads and we were having a few beers and bumped into them. We got chatting to them and they said, look, this is what we're doing. We think you should get classified. Do you fancy it? And he sat me down and said, look, I think I can get you to the games, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. And have you got rich parents? I said, no. He said, well, you need to go and find some money then. And then we were in France a month later and I was riding, but not great. Went over a roller and my leg just went. I was like, oh, this doesn't feel good. Got down to the doctor, to the hospital, and this doctor x-rayed it and she said, yeah, it's broken. It's been broken for about 3 months. Well, I went to my prosthetic doctor and asked. I'd found that they made one in America and I asked for it and they turned around and said they wouldn't make it for me. They wouldn't buy it because they don't, something about not getting leisure stuff for adults. And I was like, well, it's not leisure, is it? It's my job.
So on today's episode, I have on British Paralympian James Barnes-Miller. He is a snowboardcross athlete. And in today's episode, we get into all things to do with the sport itself. So snowboardcross, how he got into the sport, how he ended up competing as a professional athlete. We ended up talking about things such as how he adapts his training because of his arm and how he was quoted for thousands for an attachment for his arm so that he could train in the gym, and ended up building one which cost about £5, which is pretty crazy. We also talk about what it's like to be at the sort of centre stage of a sport, especially in the Paralympics. And then we also get into things such as how Eurosport and how snowboard cross can start building up the media attention surrounding it so that not just fans but friends and family of the athletes can watch. So I hope you enjoy this episode and go and follow James Barnes-Miller wherever you can. You'll find all his links down in the description below, and enjoy the episode. So James, tell us who you are and what you do.
James Barnes-Miller, I'm a Paralympic snowboarder. And we race in border cross and bank slalom. I've been on the team 7 years now. And yeah, just go snowboarding.
Where did your background come from in snowboarding? Was it a family holiday? Was it like holiday with mates?
So I always skateboarded. And then I was told I'd love snowboarding, but never had the money and the people to go with. And then, I just went on lads trips when I was, first one, I think I was like 19 or 20. Fell in love with it. Went on lads trips every year, and then I was on a lads trip in Landgraf where I bumped into a couple of the boys that were setting up had just started competing and was setting up like the Paralympic team for Great Britain.
No way. So where was the first place you went snowboarding?
Bulgaria.
Which resort?
Oh, I can't remember.
Was it Borovets?
Can't remember. No, the other one.
Bansko. There's another one, but I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah. Starts with a P, I think. I can't remember.
Because the quality, Bulgaria's quality for snowboarding.
Yeah, it was decent. I don't know if I made the most of the snowboarding.
It's cheap as anything in the bars, though, isn't it? Like you can get a pint for about £1.50, £2 or something. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think when we went, the cheapest we found was like 90p a pint. So we definitely had some fun.
Yeah, it's outrageous. Bulgaria I'd say it's one of the hidden gems of places you can go snowboarding in terms of the cost of trip and like all your expenses when you're out there. Like I went with my girlfriend last January of 2022. Went to Borovets, and it was I think the third time I've been to Borovets, and it's just I first went when I was 11, and it's not changed since. It's the layout, everything's the exact same, but it's cheap as anything, quality. So you can have a quality time while you're there.
And the mountains are good, like decent mountains from what I remember. I haven't been back since, but it's definitely I don't get the opportunity to go on lads trips at the moment. So
full-time athlete now, eh?
Once I retire, I'll get back on it with the boys.
Yeah, make the most of it. So obviously you said you skateboarded as well. So what age did you get into that?
Oh, I've skateboarded as long as I can remember, to be honest with you. Me, I've got a twin brother and an older stepbrother, and the three of us used to skate. So I must have been, I don't know, maybe 5. And yeah, we used to go to the park and find hills to go down, and it just grew from there.
Were you good at any of the tricks, or because that I like snowboarding? I'm very competent, right? Like I can ride like pretty well. I can do off piste pretty well. When it comes to doing like anything where the board comes off the ground, I'm fucked. I'm absolutely fucked. So like in skateboarding, were you good at like the sort of the technical side of it as well?
Nah, I'm not good at most technical things. I was, I was, I didn't really get into like flatland, learning to kickflip, I all found that boring. So, for me, I prefer ramps, like mini ramps, half pipes, uh, and I spent most of my time in the skate park, to be honest with you.
Decent. Yeah, I tried. I just couldn't get you. I couldn't do the transition side of it. I preferred like throwing myself downstairs and stuff. Feeling it now, but
Yeah,
just
great for the knees.
oh mate, I actually need knee surgery in about 3 weeks, so it's probably not helped.
I see the kids doing the stuff now, and I'm like, oh, it hurts my knees just watching them.
Oh, I watched the X Games was on in California this week, the weekend just gone, and I was watching the best trick competition. Some of the stuff those lads are throwing out now, like Yuto Horigome, there was like
That nose slide was unreal,
mate. The last attempt of the day as well, it was ridiculous. Like but you're looking at the quality of it now, and it's crazy to think like over the past 40 years, we've gone from these massive like 10-inch boards. No one can really do anything but big airs and stuff, and now it's as technical as it is.
Yeah, it's unreal. And watching the girls on the vert was special. What was she, 13 years old? And
yeah, you on about the British one?
no, the girl that won X Games vert was I think she's 13, and the commentator was like, the last time we had a vert competition at X Games, she wasn't born.
What? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it was unreal. So it's mind blowing what they can do now.
Yeah.
I was never that good.
The Japanese they seem to be like the prodigies within skateboarding now. Like you've got Yuto Origami, and the Olympics, I think there was an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old girl in the street competition. And then there was like Sky Brown, the British girl who was in the vert. Like it's crazy that these kids are able to produce what they do at such a young age.
It's class, isn't it? I love it. I just think, if they're doing that now, what they're going to be doing in a few years,
Yeah, like because I do you listen to Tony Hawk's podcast at all?
No, I don't actually. I should get into it because I listen to podcasts.
It's a decent one. So he does it with Jason Ellis, former skater as well, and they go on about some of the stuff they used to do, and like when he was prepping for the 900, being the first person to do it, and now there's someone who's done a 1080, and it's like the 900 at the time was like the biggest. It was like physically impossible to do, and now they've taken it one step further. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, that's the 13-year-old girl at X Games just gone done a 700, first girl to land 700 on the vert. So
I couldn't even. I'm trying to comprehend how you actually like process that in your brain to know, like, have full awareness of your like, I'm going to be landing at this point.
I don't think my brain works that fast. I don't think I could process it. No way.
Yeah. So, how many years were you skateboarding then before you got into snowboarding?
16, 17 years, probably, something like that, maybe.
Crazy. So you were like really, really young then when you got into skateboarding?
Yeah, I was young, but like it was never. There wasn't there wasn't as many parks as there is now. So we was just going, like I said, we was just going to the park and bombing hills and like doing that kind of stuff, and then got into the skate park and loved it.
How did you find the carryover from skateboarding into learning snowboarding?
I think there's a bit of carryover. Like racing border cross, it definitely helps with like how you pump things and how you move over stuff. But there's definitely some differences,
Yeah, huge differences. Because I did the opposite way. So I started snowboarding when I was 11, and then started skating I think when I was 12 or 13. So yeah, I found learning, the heel and toe edge to turn and to carve, it made so much more sense when I then got onto a skateboard, and it took like a couple of days to get it right, just being able to get around on it and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's definitely like snowboarding is such a fun sport. Like I
Oh
didn't.
yeah,
I took I think 4 or 5 years where I didn't do a trip. It was around like COVID, and then I did the one to Bulgaria.
yeah.
As soon as I got up the top, I was like, why have I not done this in so long? Like instantly, that thought of like I can be going like 40 miles an hour in about 30 seconds now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had that over COVID and couldn't travel, and yeah, we were lucky. We were lucky that we could still train, and I live in France, so we could still get around Europe. So we were super lucky to just carry on, you know.
Yeah. When did you move out to France?
I've been there 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Oh, nice. Was that for snowboarding?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we've moved up to the mountains, and it's me and the missus like it out there. So
Decent. So what was it that made you move there? Was it just having the availability of the mountains there, or was it just like a career decision, or what?
no, do you know what? After my first games in Pyeongchang, uh, an agent that I was wasn't working with, but we'd had some chats. He said, "Look, do you fancy a holiday to Morzine? Um, I've got a couple of magazines that are interested in doing a write up for this hotel." So we went out. Me and the missus went out there for a week holiday, and we sat in the garden with the owner of the chalet, and she said, why don't you live in the mountains? And we said, oh well, we've been looking, but we're not sure. And then she offered my girlfriend a job out there. So that winter we moved out there. And I'd never snowboarded there. I didn't know what it was like for snowboarding. Yeah, we just thought it'd be great, and it actually is. It has worked out really good.
That's absolutely mega. So what point was it? So obviously you were doing it recreationally, you just going with mates on holidays and stuff. So at what point was it that you realised you could make it into a career?
It wasn't until I bumped into the two of the guys, Owen and Ben, that I went to the first games with in Landgraf in Holland. I was there with the lads, and we were having a few beers and bumped into them. We got chatting to them, and they said, "Look, this is what we're doing. We think you could get classified. Do you fancy it?" And before that, it wasn't even an option because the games before that, Sochi, Paralympic snowboarding had been introduced into it, but my category wasn't in it, so it wasn't even a thing. So yeah, they asked me if I'd be up for it, so I sent a couple of emails, and took a little bit of time for the coach to get back to us because he was still in the army at the time. He hadn't left the army to do it full time. It was all sort of wheels in motion. And then he emailed me, and I went on a training camp where it went pretty good. We were training with like AFPST, which is like the Armed Forces Para Team. And he sat me down and said, "Look, I think I can get you to the games, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. And have you got rich parents?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, you need to go and find some money then." So that was that. I come home, I told my mum, I was like, "Look, this is what I want to do," and told the missus. And I was working every day, and every night I was sat at my mum's house just trolling the internet, trying to find sponsors, trying to find funding and bursaries and grants, or however, like any way to find a bit of money to get on the next training camp. And yeah, we went from there.
That's ridiculous. So funny though how he sort of said like, look, if you've not got rich parents, you've not got a chance, kind of thing. It's pretty crazy that that's the way the sport is.
Well, yeah, and his bosses were saying like, "Look, we don't think he's going to get to the games because we just don't know, like, where's he going to get the money from and where's the funding coming from." So yeah, it's just he backed me, which was really cool. Like I owe a lot to him because he supported me and backed me and fought for me to get onto the team. And yeah, me and my mum just spent hours and hours and hours just trying to find some money.
Crazy. So just to go back a little bit, you mentioned there's obviously the categories within the Paralympics. So can you just sort of break them down and also tell us what category yours is and what that means?
Yeah. So in snowboard, it's pretty easy. We have 3 categories. So we have an upper limb category that I'm in. So that's any deficiency or missing something like above the waist, sort of. And then there's below knees, So missing one joint, so like below any amputee below the knee, and then there's above knees. And then there's like other disabilities that sort of fit into their, depending on their severity.
You obviously had a conversation with this guy. What year was that in? Because obviously that wouldn't have been 2018 yet. It would have been a few years before.
I think it was 2 years before that.
Okay, so you had half an Olympic cycle to get yourself prepared and ready to.
Maybe 3, yeah, 2 or 3 years, yeah. I think it was 2 years, yeah.
Crazy.
Something like that.
So how did you get sponsorship to sort of fund your way through those 3 years? And B, what things were you putting in place to ensure that you were, well, not ensure, but make the best chances of getting to the games?
For me, like what I found the best was bursaries, actually. Finding charities and organisations that will help fund disabled athletes mainly, but young athletes. And a lot of them, like, they'll either pay for equipment or they will pay for your travel to a competition. Like they have like stipulations. So it was, yeah, like I say, I was spending every night looking through them, finding out what they would want the money spent on, and writing letters and filling out application forms. As well as that, I was like sending emails to local businesses and people that I knew in the local area where I lived, and done some fundraisers. I was really lucky to have some really good mates that done some fundraisers in the pub, like sponsored cycles, like stuff like that. And the rugby club sponsored me. Yeah, it just went on like that, and it was hard. I was really lucky with work. My boss would give me the time off to go on training camps, and he would, help me out as however he could as well. And yeah, that was it. It was just a struggle, First 3 years, maybe up until Korea, really was struggle. The missus was super understanding, like letting me go away, holding the fort back at home, But I think she knew, well, yeah, she knew that it was what I needed to do and what I was, what I had, just that goal of getting to the first games. And then, yeah, that was that.
So how much funding did you end up pulling together, and how far did that take you in terms of training camps, equipment, flights, all these different things?
I couldn't put a number on it. I don't exactly know, but it didn't cover everything.
So what are the costs that people may not be aware of trying to become an Olympic snowboarder?
So you've got flights and accommodation. I had training fees, so I had to pay for the coaching.
How much is the coaching usually? There's a range.
I don't know. I don't know now. I haven't got a clue. I haven't paid it for a few years now, luckily. Oh yeah, I wouldn't know, but it wasn't cheap. And then flights, accommodation, entry fees into competitions, your race license, medical insurance, mountain insurance, and then equipment, so race boards, obviously like helmet, back protector, like all the stuff you need to race, like race kit, and then yeah, I don't know what else there was.
What are the sort of specific differences between, like, your regular snowboard, which you would tend to do maybe the freestyle with, and go in the park with, comparative to the the snowboard cross board?
So snowboard cross boards are normally customized for you. They're a lot stiffer, so like torsionally stiffer, to help you in like faster turns. So it help you keep an edge. The bases are nice, like really nice. They've got a nice structure in them, which is like disperses the water. So when you're going over the snow, you're melting it. So you want that melted water to disperse to help you glide across it. So it's got a nice structure in it. So yeah, they do cost a little bit.
Yeah, I can imagine just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, so in terms of like, obviously you do your training on the slopes, which is a lot of, time trials, I can imagine, a lot of technical turns, all that kind of stuff. But what were you doing on the side of that, like in the gym, to enhance your performance on the board?
I was always big into my gym anyway. So for me, I'm quite a short guy. So even now, I still try and put on a lot of weight in the summer, like good weight, like muscle. Because it's gravity sports, being a bit heavier does help, especially on like flatter, long straights and stuff. So I put on a lot of weight in the summer, or tried to put on a lot of weight. But also for me, like when I first started, I was super unflexible. So getting into different sort of positions that they wanted me to get into, I really struggled. So a big thing for me was yoga. I started yoga, and it really helped me get a bit of flexibility, and that helped me massively at the start.
So obviously, because being a Paralympian, you're missing one hand, aren't you? So how do you adapt certain types of training to sort of, to be able to still get the same stimulus? So like, say, a bench press kind of movement, how are you adapting that?
So now, me and my old coach, actually, he helped me make I went to my prosthetic doctor and asked. I'd found that they made one in America, and I asked for it, and they turned around and said they wouldn't make it for me. They wouldn't buy it because they don't. I can't remember his words. Something about not getting leisure stuff for adults. And I was like, well, it's not leisure, is it? It's my job. And they went to whoever they have to go to, and they refused it. And now I think that was the last time I ever went there. So me and my coach it was very basic. I had an old like socket that my arm fits into, and it's a scaffold clip, quite a nice scaffold clip. But then we glued like rubber matting like that you get in the gym inside it, and it just clamps onto the bar, and I can do everything with it: pull-ups, bench, bent over rows. Yeah, it's really cool, and it cost us like a $5.
Probably compared to what would be like 10, 15 grand for the one from America.
They're richer, yeah.
That's incredible that you've managed to do that. You'll have to send me a picture of it, because I'll make a clip of it and put that in it as well, as you sort of describe.
Yeah, I've got it here, so I'll get it out.
But so like, how long so obviously that's going to take a lot of thought on like how you're putting that together. So how long was it from, like I've got to make my own, to when you actually had that and it was working and, you could use it daily?
Do you know what? Like it took, I didn't use it I was using like weightlifting hooks and stuff like that, but nothing was great. And that was a few years of just doing like other things. And then I sat down with my coach and I was like, look, I need something different. I want to start doing bigger lifts, and I want to be doing other things. I'm lifting more weight than I was before, so I need something that's going to hold. And we were looking online, and we found this American thing, and we went to the doctor, and that took a couple of months. And then I had this socket, and I went to him, and he was an engineer anyway. I think that's what he'd done his degree in, and he was in the army as an engineer. And I think he banged it together in like a couple of days. He was like, I found this, this is what we need, and yeah, got it all together, and I'm still using it now. It's been 4 years, maybe 5 years. Yeah, 4 years. And it's wicked. It's honestly, it's changed the way I train massively. I always had an imbalance. Obviously, my left hand, having my hand, was always bigger than my right arm, and because I didn't train it the same, and it's changed massively for everything. Like I can do like overhead dumbbell press, and so like my shoulders are filled out, my arms filled out, and it's it's changed my training massive.
Did them imbalances cause any issues in terms of like, because you can get quite stiff and obviously you end up using one side more than the other and stuff?
Yeah, I used to, like looking back now, like at the time you just crack on. And I didn't really think about it, but it couldn't have been great, doing all that training, trying to build myself up and it being imbalanced. So, I definitely think it's helped me out. And yeah, from like even when I finish snowboarding, I think I'm still gonna I'll use it every day.
Yeah. So obviously in the build up to the Olympics, you have to go to the Paralympic qualifiers, don't you? So where were they held? Where was that event?
For China, it was weird because it was all messed up because of COVID. And so they took our World Cup. I think it was our World Cup points.
Okay.
And used our World Cup points as our qualifiers. I think that's how it was. Yeah, it must have been because we also had the year before the games. We also had. Oh no, that's the same year. Yeah, I think it must have been World Cup points.
So what was your first competition then as a professional athlete?
It must have been in Landgraf where I met the boys. The year later, it's always our first race of the season, so it's an indoor race, like a bank slalom race in Landgraf. And I remember going. We were doing a bit of training in Stubai in Austria, and we went up, and it was the first time I'd even seen a bank slalom or a track, and yeah, it was a bit like, hang on a minute, I'm not sure. yeah, absolutely. But it was fun. I think I got fished out the nets a couple of times.
Jesus. So what was the learning curve like because obviously you can train for something as much as you want, but when you get onto the competition floor, it becomes a completely different environment. So
yeah.
How long was it before you started to feel a bit more like comfortable in competition? You were thinking like, I'm going to place here or like, fourth, third, whatever.
Well, my first season, I actually broke my leg. So I missed a lot of the season, which wasn't ideal.
How'd you manage that?
I think I'd done it in Austria. I just went off a jump, messed it up, and it was, but I had like a day back in UK, and I went to the hospital and said, look, it doesn't feel right, and she went, oh, you've walked in, you look all right, it's not broken. I was like, oh, okay. So I flew to America and I still couldn't ride, and we were in Aspen, and I went to the doctors there, and he x-rayed it and said it's still not broken, and I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, it must be my head. So he gave me some padding, and I still couldn't ride. And then we were in France a month later, and I was riding, but not great. Went over a roller, and my leg just went. I was like, oh, this doesn't feel good. Got down to the doctor, to the hospital, and this doctor x-rayed it, and she said, yeah, it's broken. It's been broken for about 3 months. You can see where it's like built, like the calcium build up around it, and you've put a fresh crack for it where it's not healed properly. So yeah, that wasn't a great start. And then I don't know. I think it must have been like 2 years before I started to feel like I was gonna do all right. I still wasn't anywhere near where I wanted to be, but like it was getting there.
Yeah. Did you have like that sort of imposter syndrome for those first 2 years?
No, I don't think that's in my nature. I was like, this is where, like for me, I was like, this is where I want to be, and I had a good idea of where I wanted to take it. So, I just had that plan. We knew what we wanted to do, and I believed in myself and trusted my coach at the time, and yeah, it worked out.
The job you were doing when you first realised that you could make this a career, what was that, and at what point was it that you then left it for just to snowboard?
So I was working doing loft conversions, extensions,
Yeah.
just a builder. I was doing like labouring and other bits, and I was doing that for a good couple of years, up until pretty much Korea. Just before Korea, we moved from where we were living up to where my girlfriend's parents lived, and we stayed with them. It was meant to be for a month, but we ended up there a year pretty much. And we couldn't, like, it was getting to that point where I didn't have funding still. It was it was getting difficult, and being able to move in with them for a bit saved us, to be honest, yeah. And then that's where, went to that first. Well, to be fair, we moved up there, and then I had all my kit stolen at the back of my van. Yeah,
Jesus.
and that was the season going into that Paralympics, going into Korea. So that sucked a little bit. Oh, sorry.
All good.
Yeah.
So was there any point where you were like almost going to give up? Like, getting your stuff robbed, you're not getting the funding you want. Were you almost like, at some point I've got to pack this in?
You know what? It was getting close. It was like, look, I just couldn't afford to do it. Like, I owed the team at the time a bit of money, and and then I got my stuff stolen. And I was like, oh, how do I do this? But for me, I was like, right, what do I need to do now? So I went to the press. I was emailing every media outlet that I could find an email for, and then the BBC invited me down. Well, because I was in Manchester anyway, so I went down to Media City and done an interview with them about all my stuff being stolen, and I've been selected to go to the games and all of that, and that helped me massively. The exposure from that was really good, and we done a GoFundMe, and again my mate's done some fundraising in Thanet where I grew up, and it was kind of, looking back at it now, a blessing in disguise, because I managed to fund that season, pay off my debts to the team, and get new kit. So it was like stressful at the time, but it actually it got me through that season,
Having gone through all that, what was the moment like when you actually found out you would go into the Olympics?
It was mad, because for me, that was like the whole plan. Like, that was what I was going for, was just to get selected and get to my first games. So yeah, I was buzzing, and I was just happy to go. I'd finally, like, that was all. My whole plan was just do enough to get there.
Yeah. So because there's the thing with athletes, isn't there, where like Tyson Fury, for example, his goal was always to be the world heavyweight champion, and when he did it, he completely fell off the rails, because he was like, I've achieved everything I'd ever set out to in life at the age of 32 or something. So for you, when you'd been to the Olympics and you'd done it, what was your feeling like? When you reflected on your time there, what were you sort of thinking? Were you like, I've got to go and do more, or were you like, what do I do next?
No, for the first games, I got back and I was buzzing still, but for me, I was like, right, this isn't it. I need to do more. I was just happy to be there at that games, and then I was like, right, this is where I need to, like, knuckle down, train harder, and do something different. I was like looking at different things to do. Like, what did I do in them 2 or 3 years? What can I do different to then step it up and get better?
So what have you changed over from that cycle into this 4-year cycle?
So at the start, it was just me training. Owen took a bit of time off, and we didn't have anyone else. Ben retired. So I'd done a lot of training with the Olympic guys. So with like Hugh and Charlotte and Maisie at the time. So I was training with them, which I thought for me was really good, to see how they train, see what they do. And I took a lot of stuff from there. I just took the bits I liked, what I thought would benefit me. So we done that for a year, maybe 2 years, no, a year probably. And then we got a new coach. Um, uh, and the way he coaches was different to our first coach. But it was, yeah, it was cool. So we were doing that, and then we got on another coach. So the first coach was really good with like fundamentals and teaching you to snowboard, and which is wicked. That's exactly what we needed. And then also like, look, we need to get a coach in that really understands racing. So we got in another coach who's used to race for the Netherlands, and now I think we've got the best coaching like we can get. Yeah.
So what does your typical week look like now then? If you're in a training camp, what are you doing day to day?
Like today, we were up super early. We were we went up before the lifts opened, and then they opened a lift for us to train for like 2 hours before the public turned up. So we trained with the Australians, the Australian para team, the Australian Olympic team. So we run 2 hours of like slalom training, and then went in for a coffee, and then went back out and done a few hours of like jump training, so just hitting jumps and really dialing that in. And then got back down, played a round of frisbee golf. And then jumped to this. But normally it'll be like this week we'll train like 5 days. We'll take like the weekends off maybe, and it'll be the same really, slalom or working on fundamentals. And then look for us over here, it's looking at jumping. A lot of time hitting jumps and getting comfortable and working on absorptions and all that boring stuff. And then just getting in the gym and keeping fit.
So on the sort of coaching aspect, how do the coaches go about that? Do some of them follow you down, or are they constantly filming everything that's going on? Like, and then do you analyze it after, or do you do it like sort of live feedback once you've done your run sort of thing?
It depends what we're doing. Like the slalom this morning, everything was filmed. So we'll look back at that. We'll sit down together, all three of us, and then I'll look through it and see what we need to change, what we do. But after every run, you're going back up and you're speaking to the coaches, and they'll say like, look, that was nice, but we need to change this, look at this. And so it kind of depends on what, and if they see something, then they might film it on their phone and we can have a quick flick through it and see, because you have to be like, you feel like you're doing something, and it isn't until you see yourself doing it that you can really understand, oh, right, I wasn't doing it, I need to change this. So, and then when we were jumping, we just, like, unless we're working like on real specifics, and sometimes we'll film stuff and look back at it, but today we're just hitting jumps. The coaches joined in.
So the jumps, actually, that's something I wanted to ask about. Like, because, you know, when you think of a jump, people think of you go as high as you possibly can. But with this, it's about efficiency. So what are you looking for to make something the perfect jump during a race?
During a race, most of the time you're trying to absorb them, so you don't want to go up, because if you're going up, then that's time taken off. Like, you're slowing yourself down, you know. But it all depends on the jump. Some jumps you will have to do that to make the landing, because if you knuckle it, then it's going to slow you right down. But most of the time you're trying to absorb it and keep as low to the ground as you can, and keep going in a straight line, you know.
In terms of the sponsorship and stuff, like you said, you struggled at the start to get that. So now, how does the sponsorship work with you? Because obviously you're a full-time athlete now. So is it also, do you get enough sponsorship? Do you think there should be more within the sport, or how do you sort of see it?
So I get funded by UK Sport, so like the national lottery, and it's all based on results. So so I'm actually like, I've had some good results, so I'm funded pretty well. Do I think it could be better? Yeah, because yeah, it's still pretty hard and it's pretty risky. But I do think I'm doing all right. Um, but I do think with UK sport, it is a little bit backwards where the funding doesn't come until you get results, which
You
makes it
can't get
really
results
hard.
without funding.
Absolutely, yeah. So they are getting better. We've got a development program that's just started last year, which we've never had, and that's funded by I'm not that into it. I don't know enough about it, but I think it's UK Sport and Snow Sports Scotland and Snow Sports England maybe, which is really cool. We've got a great coach who's running that, and he's putting on events all over the UK, in the indoor domes and up in Scotland, which like anyone can go to. And yeah, he's doing that now, which is really good. And I think we need to do more of that to help people get to a standard where they can come up and join the team, you know.
So what do you think snowboarding could do as a sport to bring in more media attention, which would then in turn bring in more sponsorship and more money and more prize money?
I think more like our race, especially Paralympic snowboarding. It's really hard to follow. Like a lot of our World Cup races aren't filmed, aren't streamed, aren't put on any platform. And I think that's a must, you know. Because like my mum will follow it, and friends will follow it, and they're following is like the Fizz website with times on it or results on it, you know. And the only things that are on the TV or streamed are normally world champs and the games. So that's every 2 years, and then every 4 years for the games. So I think that's a major issue, and I think that needs to be addressed. But it's a new, like Paralympic snowboarding is such a new sport still, really, and in the scheme of sports, you know, that I think it will come. It's just going to take a bit of time.
Yeah, I think like we've seen recently the amount of sports that have, you know, the big sports, but the amount of attention that have come from documentary series like Drive to Survive, Full Swing. You've got the tennis one that's just come out, or the All or Nothings, you know, in the football teams. They bring so much media attention that actually they're probably missing the mark, where they're not, like GB Snowsport, for example, could be going behind the scenes, showing everyone the ins and outs of people's lives, like, you know, the sort of the elation and the, you know, the pressing side of it when you lose, like seeing all aspects, seeing the political side. Like people don't understand it, which is probably why they don't watch it. You know, unless you've been snowboarding, you're probably never going to watch snowboarding unless it's on at the Olympics.
Yeah.
So it's like just giving it that little bit extra media coverage. Like,
yeah, I think the issue with that is, again, it's down to funding. Like,
yeah,
it's a big budget to then get someone to come to however many races or competitions. Like, so you think, especially under GB Snowsport, you've got all like alpine snowboard, para snowboard, moguls, like para alpine. And I'm sure I've missed loads there, but trying to get people to them to then film it, and it's again, it's down to like where you find that money to be able to do that. And I agree that's where it needs to go, but it's a chicken and egg, isn't it?
Yeah, it's such a hard one because I've interviewed multiple bobsled athletes. I've got an interview with the skeleton athlete in a couple of weeks, and these sports, I think, are much more impressive than some of the sports you see at the Olympics, which get the major coverage. Like, you know, speed walking is a sport. Like, how has that got coverage? And it, you know, there's so much more impressive. Like when you actually look at it for, you know, the skill of it, sort of thing. But it just seems to go amiss, other than at the Olympics, really.
Yeah, I agree totally. But I think a lot of the summer sports like have got the attention because there's a lot more people doing them. I guess I don't really know, to be honest. And I think London 2012 definitely had a big, especially the UK, you know, how big that was, and people are still following it from there.
Yeah, I did it. I interviewed a 4x400 meter relay athlete who was from Team USA, who competed at the London Olympics. Like, and you know, I remember watching that race because I was 13 at the time. Like, and the sort of difference that had on the way schools approached athletics and all that kind of thing is massive. But then obviously the winter sports, just the way the UK is, you know, we don't have access to all this stuff. It just doesn't hit the spot like it does for the summer.
No, absolutely. And I think it's getting better, but I just don't think it's going to be the same as the summer sports, which is a shame. But yeah, it is what it is.
So what are some of the worst injuries you've had as a result of snowboarding, and sort of how did you go about the recovery to get back to full fitness?
So I've done my collarbone the year after the Korean Games. I had to have a plate in it. I broke it in three. I done my AC joint on the other side. I done my tib, I think, the small bone in your leg. Yeah, and loads of like little injuries. But for me, I don't enjoy it. No, that's not the right word. But for me, it really focuses me. I do whatever I have to do to get back in as soon as possible. So straight in for surgery if I need surgery, or seeing the right doctors to get the right advice, and then and as soon as possible I get back into rehabbing. Like my AC joint I done just before Christmas a couple of years ago, and then I saw the doctor in London straight away, and then over Christmas I'd started rehabbing, and then like the first weekend, so it's like 2nd or 3rd of January, I went straight to Sheffield, where I was working with our physio for like a week before flying straight back out to Finland with the physio to carry on rehabbing whilst getting back on snow to get back for a race. So for me, I'll obviously listen to what the specialists have to say, but I try and push it as quick as I can.
They give you the sort of the worst case scenario, like they'll say 3 months, but you could probably 2 or half of that sometimes.
And that's why I liked. He's left us now. He's now with England football, I think. But he was good. I sit down with him and say, look, how long do you reckon? And he'll give me the honest answer. It pushed me. It pushed me like.
Who was that?
Lawrence, his name was. He was our head physio at GB Snowsport up until China. Until China, and then he went over to the football. But yeah, he was good. It pushed me, and it was hard at times. But yeah, he was wicked.
Was it nervous getting back on, like especially with the collarbone? The collarbone's probably the worst one out of all of them, because you can't do much about it. You've just kind of got to sit and rest, sort of thing. So were you nervous going back onto the slopes with that, just in case you fell funny or?
Oh yeah. And same with the AC joint. The AC joint probably hurt more than breaking my collarbone, to be honest with you.
Oh really?
Yeah, it was just a weird pain. Like with collarbone, I was like, oh yeah, that don't feel great. Whereas my AC joint, like I went white straight away, and I was like, oh, that hurts.
Yeah. What's the length of a career for a snowboard cross athlete? Like, at what age do people start to retire?
It all depends, to be honest with you. Like, especially with Paralympics border cross, there's guys still doing it now that are a bit older than me, but and the Olympic side of it, like some of the guys are getting into their mid to late 30s and still ripping, you know. It all depends on the person, you know. Like I've definitely found now I'm 33, and it's like some things that I need to sit down every now and again, and some injuries have taken a little bit more time to heal than they would have, you know.
Yeah.
But it all depends. It all depends on the individual, I think.
So have you started looking at like putting things in place for after your career, or you still leaving that for a few more years?
I'm gonna do Italy. I'm gonna go to the next games, hopefully, if I get selected. Um, and then after there, I'll start thinking about
What you
other
want to do?
things. I think. Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, because
but
that's the
who
only
knows?
it's the only thing with like athletes, like because I've worked in football and I've seen it where lads they build they're building their lives around a football career, and
Yeah,
then they come out of it all of a sudden, whether that be through injury or they retire or they just didn't make it past academy level, and they've put so much effort into the football that they then come out and they're like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with my life because they've passed 20 years being focused on football. So is there, if like GB Snowsport, for example, put any things in place, to sort of help you if you need like career advice or financial advice and all that sort of stuff?
yeah, massively, massively. GB Snow Sport and UK Sport. I get a grant every year. To go on courses. To like better myself. And that course could be anything. Um, and then we have like a performance lifestyle coach. I guess it's a coach. Who, yeah, we can go to with that kind of stuff, and they can either help you through it, or they'll find someone who can help, like an expert in that field, if we need help. But I was lucky. I didn't. Yeah, I think I was 25 or 24 when I started. So I'd already like done a bit of like I had a job and I've done things, So um, it's for me. It's like, yeah, if it all finished tomorrow, I could just crack back on with what I was doing before. Um, it hasn't been my whole life. I get it. One of our performance lifestyle coaches years ago was she was an ex-gymnast, and that's all she knew. And when her career finished, she was like, I didn't know what to do. And she was like, what would you do? I was like, I'll just crack back on with what I was doing before. She was like, oh, you got it all figured out, haven't you? I was like, well, I wouldn't say figured out, but I think I was lucky to have done things before I got into being a
Yeah.
full-time athlete.
Yeah, because most cases now is like you have to be, from the moment you walk in, you're in the sport, you're learning it, and your entire life is focused around it. So then when it gets to the end, a lot of them still just like, where do I go? What do I do? I've got no qualifications and stuff like that.
I think that's why Paralympic sport's so different, because a lot of people, obviously, like if they don't get injured until later on in life, or whatever it is, there's so much variety. And I think going back to what you're saying about like if we had a film crew following our tour, some of the stories are unreal.
Yeah, exactly. Like you see you get to see the personalities behind people you see online or in the race sort of thing as well. So it also brings exposure to you and gives you more opportunity in terms of like sponsorship and whatever else it may be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your best race and your worst race, how do they compare, and what did you take from the worst race that you then took into the best one?
We'll start with worst. Was probably China, to be fair. I'd had a great season. We'd gone to world champs. I'd medalled at most World Cups. I'd got a silver and 2 bronze at the world champs, like literally like 2 months before. So I was going into it super confident. I was like, right, this is my race. I feel like I could do really well. I could hopefully get on the podium. And then, yeah, in the semi-final, I think it was, I got taken out and fell over. And that was gutting. It like, yeah, got back from the games. I still haven't watched it. And my missus thought I was having a breakdown because I didn't speak about it. And yeah, she was a bit worried for a little while, but yeah, it was a bit gutting, but it is what it is. And had a bit of time off over summer, and then got back into it, and yeah, ready to fight for this next season. But my best race was probably at that World Champs. Before it, I was leading the border cross, and up until the last corner, and then this French guy that I raced against just managed to it was on my heel, so I drifted out a little bit, and he cut it on his toes really nice, and just got me over the jump before the finish line. But it was a great race. I've watched it loads of times, and I really enjoyed it.
So what have you taken from both of them? Like, if you could take one lesson from both opportunities, what would it be?
So for the loss, and it's what I've gone into this 4-year cycle with is I've for the last 6 or 7 years of doing it, it's been my whole life. I've totally focused. I've not done anything else, and it it's been everything that I've thought about, and I've gone into this 4 years not caring, but trying to do other things to balance it out, and having a better work-life balance. I'd drop things, like if weddings and everything, I would drop them and go on a training camp. Whereas now I'm trying to balance it up a little bit, and if there's things that I want to go and do, then I'm going to do them. And I think it's actually helping my riding. I'm I'm happier. I'm riding better, to get that better work-life balance. And my best race, what did I get from that? Don't know. I don't think I learned a lot from the good races. Like, you enjoy them, but I think the losses are where you learn things.
You get to take the most from them, don't you? Like
Yeah.
that. Like you said, you spent most of your time all consumed by it, to then realise that actually you're probably better off to allow yourself to do the other things, which will then in turn benefit your performance because you're better headspace. Because you're missing, if you're missing, say, a friend's wedding, or the lads are going on holiday and you don't go, it's a bit shit, isn't it? Like, you're like, you don't want to be the one who misses out on it, all the memories that everyone else is making together. So to allow yourself to have that work-life balance, it's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, and like I say, I've definitely seen a change in my riding, I think.
So one final question for you, which is one that I ask everyone, is how would you like to be remembered?
I don't know. I mean, I want to add. I suppose I want to add to Paralympic snowboarding, and however that is, I don't know still. But I want to be remembered for putting something into Paralympic snowboarding, because I love it, and I've got loads of everyone I race against. I've got a good group of friends, and it's a great thing, So yeah, if I can add to that and keep it going, then I'm going to try and do that.
Amazing. Absolute pleasure having you on, mate. Just let everyone know where they can find you, and follow what you're doing and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so Stubbergram on Instagram, and the same on Twitter, and James Barnes-Miller on Facebook. And then if you normally our World Champs is streamed on YouTube, and all our results are on the FIS website.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on, mate.
No worries, mate. It was wicked.
Hope you enjoyed this one with James Barnes-Miller. Great guy, great guest to have on. Really appreciate him coming on and giving his time. If you want to find him, you can find all his links down in the description below. And also remember to like, subscribe, and share the podcast, because about 95% of you don't subscribe, which is shit. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week for another episode.